Hello, I'm Robert Emmett Hernan. I'm head of Blue Stack Productions, the publisher of Irish Environment, an online magazine covering environmental matters on the island of Ireland. I'm very happy today to be here in Belfast with Stephen McCabe. Stephen, you're very welcome.
Thank you.
Stephen, you're the Senior Policy Officer for the Northern Ireland Environmental Link.
That's right.
Could you tell us just in general what your function is within NEIL, we'll call it?
Yeah, sure. So Environment Link, or NEIL, is the umbrella body for the environmental sector in Northern Ireland, and as the Senior Policy Officer, I suppose I'm a bit of a mouthpiece of the sector to government. I try and stay in touch with our member organisations and speak to them about their policy views, and my background is science as well, so I like to bring an evidence base to how we try and shape policy and provide information on policy to government in Northern Ireland.
And Stephen, how long have you been with NEIL?
I joined Environment Link in late 2012.
Okay. Now, recently, NEIL, and you obviously were a major force in this, produced the document Priorities for the Environment 2016-21, in part for the election, which for the Assembly, which is the legislative body for Northern Ireland, in May 5th, yes? Mm-hmm. But also as a guideline for what you hoped would be adopted within the program of government and for the next 5 years or so. And I thought what we could do today is go through a couple of those strategies and priorities and chat about those. And the first one I'll ask you about is green prescriptions. And what is that?
Okay, well, I guess the drive of that document in general is to try and change how people are talking about the environment as more of something that provides solutions for society than gives us problems, so that we don't want people to be saying, well, the environment's about don't touch this and don't do that anymore. Rather, it's about enjoy it, use it responsibly, get the benefits from it, and that's what the green prescriptions is really about. The health budget in Northern Ireland is growing year on year, and obviously that's unsustainable. We can't keep doing that, and I suppose we need to begin to look for alternatives, preventative ways of dealing with health problems, the health problems of wider society. And there's a massive body of research out there that shows the positive links between a healthy environment and physical and mental health and well-being. And so what we're trying to do and trying to get the health sector to look at in Northern Ireland is this idea of green prescriptions, that GPs, as they write prescriptions for medication for people, also write in that once or twice a week they walk around a lake or visit a heritage site or whatever it is. And we're not suggesting, of course, that is a panacea and that's the whole solution, but it's a part of the solution to getting people to be more resilient. You know, I was speaking with someone recently and they were suggesting that the most sustainable thing we can do as individuals, the most environmentally friendly thing that we can do as individuals, is keep ourselves healthy, and not make ourselves a liability to society in that sense. And I think that's really important. So it would be wonderful if we started to see a take-up of this green prescriptions.
And is obesity a problem in the north?
It is a growing problem, that year on year, I think, again, we're seeing increased pressure from obesity and diabetes and diseases of that kind.
Now, one of the other priorities is your land strategy. I wonder if you could tell the audience what that is.
Our land is under increasing pressure, you know, from lots and lots of different sectors and quarters, whether it's housing, agriculture, recreation, using land to adapt to or offset climate change. All of these things are increasing pressures on our land, and we often say we're not making any more land. In fact, we're losing it.
Yes.
So what we'd really like to see government taking up is a holistic land strategy for Northern Ireland, and we have in place a strategic planning policy for Northern Ireland, but it would be great to have something in place that looks at our land area strategically and assesses how we use our land and are we using it in the best way. Because if we have a limited land area, it's obviously best if we try to optimise how we're using it. So to assess ecosystem service flow in different land areas. If a land's multifunctional, make sure that we're enjoying all those benefits that the land gives us. If it has a primary function, absolutely make sure that that area of land is used for its primary function. And just to make sure that in planning and decision making those things are taken into account.
And so you would start with a survey of some kind or an assessment of what is being done now with that land?
So there's quite a big drive from Europe on mapping and assessment of ecosystem services, and each member state is expected to progress that exercise so that they know what they've got essentially in terms of natural capital, and then what flows from that natural capital to benefit society. So absolutely a mapping and assessment exercise would be a part of that.
Now this is kind of somewhat related because one of the other items is the community planning agenda, and I wonder if you could just quickly explain the difference, because we now have a new council structure, what's going on with that.
Okay, so we have community planning introduced in Northern Ireland from just over a year ago, and really community planning is about getting service provision right in an area, trying to make sure that the community have all the things that they need, and then the local development plan, which is a more traditional spatial plan, is the spatial expression of the community plan. So there's a statutory link in the legislation between the community plan and the local development plan. So at the moment, councils are running various workshops to get community groups together and to get them to feed into this community plan process. And Environment Link are very much a part of that, at least on an ad hoc basis, where we can interact with councils and try and show them that the environment provides services that we don't want to be lost in this whole service provision picture.
And how are they doing so far?
They're all at different stages, but it's very encouraging. Each council has a community planning officer or manager, and it's very encouraging to interact with them, and they're very switched on and driving the process very well, I think.
Now, Stephen, I wonder if you could explain for the audience how the planning functions is split in a way between local councils and what has been withheld still under the control of the central government.
Okay, so the central government departments in Northern Ireland are currently with DOE, but will be moving to the Department for Infrastructure. Will set strategic planning policy. That is the SPPS, the Strategic Planning Policy Statement, and the people responsible for that will still be in central government. Also, on top of that, central government have the ability to call in planning applications that are controversial or that are regionally significant. So then the decision for those applications will be taken by the minister rather than at local council level. But for the main part, planning decisions will be taken at local level now.
Let me switch to another quite interesting issue in the project, and that is something called the Wellbeing of Future Generations Bill. And I wonder if you explain to the audience what you're calling for with the Wellbeing of the Future Generations Bill.
Okay, so this is something that we have seen go through in Wales. They now have a Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, which sets several wellbeing goals for the country. A prosperous Wales, resilient, healthier, more equal, cohesive communities, vibrant culture, and globally responsible. And those are all very laudable goals, and we'd like to see that coming into Northern Ireland too. And there are public bodies then in Wales that have a duty, a future wellbeing duty, that they must deliver these goals. And they also have a future wellbeing commissioner in place to advocate for future generations. And he or she has an advisory board then that advises them. So it would be wonderful to have that in place in Northern Ireland, because the idea of intergenerational equity is such an important one. With things like climate change and the challenges that it presents looming.
And do you remember do you know if the Wales bill provides specifically for considering climate change and its impact on future generations?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, specifically it's bit on resilience. When you drill down into the legislation, has climate change mentioned there, and they are very cognizant of that. You know.
Okay. There's no targets set forth about that. It's just a kind of an aspirational or a...
Yeah, I mean, essentially what the Planning for Future Generations bill is about is sustainable development, you know, in its truest sense, and it's maybe new terminology for that, because the whole sustainable development jargon is slightly out of vogue now. I think we have a strategy in Northern Ireland that is no longer current, and we need a new sustainable development strategy, but perhaps the terminology is moving on to thinking about intergenerational equity a little more.
There's also recently a change not only in the number of local councils but in the number of central government departments. Could you just explain what that change has been?
So that has been a part of the wider review of public administration in Northern Ireland. So we've had the shrinkage in the amount of local councils, local authorities, and then the government departments are shrinking down to 9 departments. And as a part of that, the Department for the Environment is being dissolved, if you like, and so is the Department for Agriculture and Rural Development, and then a new department is arising out of those, called the Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs. I suppose that's moving towards the DEFRA model in GB, where agriculture and environment are seen as sitting together, and there are pros and cons to them being in the same department, I think. Obviously we have concerns as an environment sector that environment is the poorer cousin, if you like, and might get lost in the mix there. And yet that doesn't have to be the case, you know. I think a lot of us are optimistic that that's a new start. It's in a good department, and there are great people that we can work with to move forward. After the election this year, the programme for government will be agreed before the departments are split among the different ministers.
That's a new step, yeah.
So that's a new thing and something we're appreciative of.
Okay. I guess the concern for many people is that agriculture generates revenue and the environment doesn't. And it has, those are sometimes tough cousins to get along at times.
Sure. I suppose it's again almost coming back to what we began talking about with changing how people think about the environment, and that the environment, when we manage it well, is an enabler for society, and can work so well with obviously the agricultural sector, because those are the men and women out working the ground, and are so in touch with the environment. So we would hope that what we'll see going forward is a closer partnership between agriculture and environment, rather than always notionally butting heads. You know, I think we are seeing a change in an appreciation of the environment. We are seeing that change in how people are thinking about it, that it isn't always a burden. You know, it isn't always about regulation. It's actually what safeguards our future. And I would hope that we have the policies in place at national level that would see good things happening still in the environment going forward. You can see I'm an optimist.
It's always good to end on hope, Stephen. Thanks very much for talking with us today.
Thank you, Bob.